He was entangled with Chloe for 10 years, and everyone in their circle laughed at him, calling him the eternal backup guy. She even said the gardener's son, fun to play with, but marriage, not a chance. At that moment, no one noticed him standing outside the door. He clenched his fists, eyes red, and turned away. That same day, he found someone else and got married. The next day, he knocked on Chloe's office door. "Chloe, I want to resign." Darren's deep voice broke the quiet atmosphere of the office. Hearing this, Chloe paused with the files, lifted her eyes slightly, her tone indifferent. "Why?" "I got married, and I have new plans for the future. It doesn't fit to stay by your side anymore." Darren's voice was sincere, but Chloe seemed to hear a joke. "Married? When did that happen? What about the wedding?" The three questions made the office fall silent for a long moment. Darren looked down for a while before meeting her gaze. "My wife had to leave the country for something urgent. We'll have the wedding when she gets back." Hearing the word wife, Chloe's lips curled into an intriguing smile. "Wife? Who did you marry?" Hearing the suppressed mockery in her voice, Darren stopped himself from blurting out a name. Even though Lena seemed warm and kind when they got the marriage license yesterday, this marriage happened so fast. Darren wasn't sure if she wanted it public, so he chose to stay silent. The long silence convinced Chloe that Darren's talk of resignation and marriage was nothing but a show to grab her attention. After hearing Ethan was back, normally she might play along, but now she wasn't in the mood or time to act in this drama. The phone rang. She picked it up, and her cold expression softened instantly. "Ethan, I'll be right there." The next second, she grabbed her coat, and as she walked past Darren, she threw out a casual remark. "If you want to resign, go through the process." Before she finished her sentence, she was already out of sight. Does that mean it's approved? With the process, all he needed was a month for a handover, and he could leave for good. Darren's tense body relaxed. He could hardly believe how smooth it went. With his head down, he returned to the assistant's office, his mind a mess, filled with many memories. At 16, he'd moved from the countryside to Oak City, living with his mom, who'd been a housekeeper for the Smiths for decades. The Smiths were kind and arranged a school for him, letting him go with Chloe. At that age, with his heart just starting to stir, Chloe was slender with a good face, and Darren fell for her, unable to resist. But knowing their vast differences, he never dared to approach her. Until one night, Chloe drunkenly stumbled into his room, and they spent the night together. The next morning, as she zipped up her dress, her back to him, she asked nonchalantly, "You blush every time you see me. Do you like me?" His secret crush was exposed, making him anxious, yet she turned with a slight smile. "Last night, I went to the wrong room. Tonight, do you want to go to the wrong room?" He mistakenly took it as her accepting him, eyes widening, a joy spreading in his chest like flowers blooming. Their relationship held on like that, night after night, all over the house. This ridiculousness lasted 10 years, but she never gave him an official status. Darren hoped, dreaming that one day, she would express it and give him a name. Until yesterday, Chloe suddenly texted him about attending a welcome home party and told him to dress up nicely. They had been together for so long, and while she couldn't go a night without him, she almost never brought him to such events. So hearing this, he subconsciously thought she was ready to make their relationship public. His heart was full of excitement, and he went happily. The taxi stopped in the garage. Just as he was about to unbuckle, a familiar voice came from the sports car next to them. It was Chloe's close friend, sounding very dismissive. "Chloe, bringing Darren to this kind of event, is that appropriate? If people find out about his background, who knows how they'll laugh." "Yeah, the gardener's son really devalues the event." Chloe's voice was mild, but Darren knew her too well. He could hear the mockery. "If Ethan can date such a cheap girl, why can't I bring such a devalued guy to a party?" Each word was like a dagger to Darren's heart. He froze, his lips trembling. The folks nearby, oblivious, kept chatting. "Ha ha ha. Chloe, if Darren hears you, wouldn't he be heartbroken? Aren't you afraid he'll leave you? With his kind of background, where can he find anything better? Without me, he'd probably not survive." These light words brought laughter, which was so hurtful it crushed Darren's fragile pride. He had no more interest in this so-called party, and after texting Chloe that he didn't feel well and couldn't make it, he hurriedly left the garage. By the time he came to his senses, he realized he was back at the Smiths. He asked a longtime staff member there and quickly learned about Chloe and the boy named Ethan's history. Turns out they were childhood sweethearts, having grown up together closely. When in school, Chloe never accepted any love letters because she already had someone she liked. But before she could express it, Ethan started dating someone unsuitable. The families disapproved, but he resisted the family and left the country with his girlfriend. Chloe never forgot him, longing for Ethan for years, staying single, waiting for his return. Hearing all this, Darren felt numb. Those feelings that had haunted him for so long about Chloe, who was like a shining star in the sky, finally made sense. With the name Ethan, he figured out why Chloe had kept him in a confusing relationship for 10 years. It was because Ethan had chosen a poor woman, so out of spite, she settled for someone as cheap as him. When daylight came, his tears had dried up, and the last flicker of hope in his heart was gone, too. Completely over it, he pulled out a business card. The card belonged to Lena. Years ago, Darren's mom saved Lena's life by pushing her out of the way of an out-of-control car. Out of gratitude, Lena gave her this card, promising help if she ever needed it. Not long after, Darren's mom passed away, giving the card to him on her deathbed. Now Darren faced an unsolvable problem and decided to call the number and make an unusual request. He asked Lena to marry him. She didn't hesitate and agreed. That afternoon, they headed to City Hall and got their marriage certificate. Afterward, Lena mentioned she needed to go abroad and that they'd have to wait a month to hold the wedding. Darren only wanted to use the marriage to finally get rid of Chloe and didn't care about having a wedding, so he agreed. Holding the marriage certificate in his hands, it felt surreal to Darren. He was married now, but mostly he felt relief. He could finally let go of Chloe for good. Ethan, who had been abroad for years, suddenly returned. Apparently, because he broke up with his longtime girlfriend. Back then, he rebelled against his family for her, but their different backgrounds proved too much. In the end, his return caught many off guard, leaving him unprepared for a lot of things. Chloe heard, and immediately dragged Darren along to help out. Although Darren wasn't keen to go, he was technically still under Chloe's employment as he was transitioning jobs, and thus had no excuse to refuse. On the way there, Chloe kept giving him advice, telling him to be sharp and notice what was missing. Darren nodded along, running around to get things done. After buying everything, a tired Darren followed them, listening to them reminisce. Chloe, remember how for every birthday, you'd have my favorite cake flown in from Europe? I haven't had anyone do that for me these years abroad. The flown-in cake. Darren had received one, too, which made him happy for a while, but he never understood why. Now he knew those cakes were for Ethan's birthday, and every time we went out, you'd take me to that little eatery. Wonder if it's still open after all these years. It hadn't closed, Darren quietly answered in his heart. He'd been there 2 months ago with Chloe. She always ordered 2 servings of their Black Forest cake. That must have been because Ethan liked it. As the three of them walked, Chloe and Ethan dug up old memories, and Darren could find a parallel in each one in his own memory. Only today did he realize that all of Chloe's care and concern for him were just her way of reminiscing about Ethan. He watched the two, their backs in sync, keeping his composure while keeping busy. The once empty room was now packed with essentials for living, eating, and entertainment, thanks to half a day's work. Ethan was pleased with his efficiency, looking at him with praise. Talking with Chloe for so long, I almost forgot to ask, who's this? Before Darren could reply, Chloe cut in. He's the son of a longtime housekeeper for the Smiths. She'd brought him along all these years, and when she passed a few years back, he stayed on. He's part of the family now, working as my assistant. A hint of surprise flashed in Ethan's eyes, but was quickly replaced by normality. Chloe really has a kind heart, keeping old ties. Chloe looked at him, her tone charged with meaning. Yes, I hold on to old ties, and I remember old flames, too, Ethan. Ethan paused at that, not continuing the conversation. Nearby, Darren caught the exchange, lowering his gaze. Loved ones can be overseas for years, yet you'll still hold on to fond memories when reunited. Chloe for sure remembers the old flame. Passing a flower garden, he casually fixed a leaning branch. Just then, Ethan turned his head and noticed his ring. Hey, Darren, I've seen that ring before. Sprightly, I guess the assistant. Gig pays well, Ethan remarked. Darren's eyes followed Ethan's to the glowing ring on his hand, momentarily lost in thought. Lena had given it to him before she left, saying the wedding might be postponed, but the gesture couldn't be missed. Darren never knew much about the jewelry's worth, assuming it was something picked up last minute. It's really valuable, he wondered. Even Chloe glanced at it and frowned a bit. Nice ring, Ethan noted, just on the wrong finger. That's the wedding band spot. Darren shook his head, smiling. No mistake, it's a wedding band. A wedding band? You're married. Billy's face showed genuine surprise. Darren nodded softly. Yeah, just a few days ago. Chloe's expression darkened right away. She stared at Darren for a while, wanting to say something, but couldn't bring herself to. As they finished up and night fell, Ethan walked them to the garage. During their goodbyes, he threw in a few more compliments about Darren. Chloe, you're on top of things like nobody's business. I'm still trying to get my bearings back, and if it's cool with you, could you give me his contact info? I might need to reach out for some help. He asked her for a favor, so Chloe didn't say no. Of course. What's mine is yours. I'll text you his contact after a while. Just direct him if you need anything. Driving home, Darren kept quiet. Chloe instinctively thought he was mad about what happened earlier. She was about to ask, when her gaze shifted and caught sight of that ring, which brought back her suppressed frustration. Marriage? Wedding rings? If you're gonna half-ass it with me, fine, but no need to put on a show for Ethan. Darren's grip on the wheel tightened slightly, but he decided to clarify. No, it really is a wedding ring. His eyes avoided hers as he said it, making Chloe think he was feeling guilty. She didn't bother wasting breath, just laid it all out there. Ethan's different from everyone else to me, so you'd better keep your little tricks to yourself and stick to your duties. Don't try anything with him. Her tone was laced with a clear warning. Darren's eyes narrowed and his lips pressed tight, but he said nothing. In the past, him seeing her care so much about Ethan might have stirred up some jealousy, but Darren's not the type to stir things up and certainly wouldn't mess with someone she loves. Now that he's married, he couldn't care less who she likes or dislikes. After 10 years of knowing each other, it surprised him that she'd think of him this way. A hint of helplessness crossed Darren's mind as he let out a barely audible sigh. After they added each other, Ethan frequently pinged him for favors. Lost passport? Get Darren to handle it. Missing something at home? Call the cops. Ethan wants to see a play? Darren snagged those tickets. He juggled these odds and ends with his company work, running himself ragged. A few times he tactfully suggested to Chloe that she hire a professional assistant for Ethan, but she didn't seem interested. Darren knew it wasn't about the money. She just wanted to hammer home how much Ethan meant to her, rubbing it in for Darren. But that really wasn't necessary. He saw the truth clearly, so much so that he left it alone and had already moved on from her. Running around for over a week left Darren so hectic he practically forgot about Lena. So when she called, it caught him off guard. Her voice was as gentle as ever. Are you busy? Sorry to bother you today. I just wanted to see how you feel about having the wedding over at Bay Ridge. A wedding at Bay Ridge? Darren repeated without realizing, just as the assistant's office door swung open. Chloe walked in, eyes locked on him with a cold glare. Wedding? What wedding? Darren was so startled, he hung up abruptly and stood. Before walking in, Chloe had started to grow suspicious, but when she saw him hang up in a fluster, her skepticism rose even more, making her scoff. So you're sticking to this marriage story? Given we've known each other 10 years, why haven't I gotten an invite? Seems kind of off, doesn't it? Invitation, first-time groom. Darren hadn't even thought about that. After a pause, he met her gaze and spoke coolly. Invitations aren't ready yet, but once they are, I'll make sure you get one. With the wedding clothes and no invites ready yet? Hearing that, Chloe couldn't help but find it amusing. She didn't call him out, just nodded noncommittally. All right, then I'll wait. On a rare weekend off, Darren wasn't idle, prepping stuff to toss out. Box in hand, he ran into Chloe on her way home. Catching her cryptic look, he put the box down and explained, Chloe, I'm planning to move out after getting married. Thanks for looking out for me all these years. A flicker of annoyance crossed Chloe's face, her tone snappier than usual. Bringing up marriage all the time. What? Scared I'll forget. Anyway, it's my place here, so your call if you want to move. From her voice, Darren sensed a rough mood, so he held back any more words and lent an ear to her. I'm off next week, taking Ethan to Willow City for vacation. Could you prep a travel plan? See everything through? Ethan has OCD, so swap the hotel stuff out for new, and make sure it's sanitized. Start the day after 3 p.m. since he's jet-lagged. You gotta vet the people joining too. He's not into chatterboxes. From hotels to personnel, from weather to preferences, Chloe rambled on for over half an hour, meticulous in every detail. In the decade he knew her, Darren had never seen her put so much effort into someone. Looking at the 40-minute recording, he sighed deeply, memories of the past bubbling up. Willow City, famous for its beauty, was a destination Darren had longed to visit. Before Ethan returned, he brought it up to Chloe, even made it his birthday wish, but no matter how he pleaded, she never agreed. Always insisting work was too busy, no time for fun, leaving him crestfallen for quite a while. Who would have thought that work-driven Chloe would go to such extremes, ensuring Ethan's joy? Truly, old friends and new clothes aren't the same. Darren didn't feel hurt, just thoughtful and a bit resigned. He agreed to the request, tossed the trash, and got right on planning. For the following week, free of constant calls, he finally enjoyed some downtime. Ethan sent tons of vacation pics, scenery, food, selfies, group photos, capturing everything. Whenever they popped up, Darren would check them out, not snooping, just indulging his wanderlust. One day, Lena's secretary unexpectedly texted about checking out the wedding house. With nothing pressing, he agreed and tagged along to the villa area over at Mountain View. After seeing 2 villas, some work emergency popped up, sending the secretary away. Darren wandered around by himself, but found it pretty dull, so he decided to head back. Just as he reached the entrance, he heard 2 familiar voices outside the villa. "Chloe, why'd you suddenly decide to give me a house? You love painting, right? It's near the mountains here. When you feel like going out to get some inspiration, it's nice to have a place to rest." Ethan couldn't refuse after hearing how thoughtful she was being. "Chloe, you're always so considerate. You're really good to me." When Chloe heard the word sister, a flicker of sadness flashed in her eyes. She turned her head to hide those feelings and forced a smile. "If you recognize how good your sister is, then let's not be upset over those women who aren't worth it, okay?" Halfway through her sentence, Chloe saw Darren walking over from next door. Her tone shifted immediately. "What are you doing here? Stalking me again?" Darren hadn't expected to run into her here and hurried to explain. "No, Chloe, I'm just here to check out a house." "A house here? Darren, do you even know the prices of the villas in this area?" Ethan looked baffled, and Chloe found it ridiculous, her lips curving upward slightly. "Check out a house for what?" "A wedding house." With both pairs of eyes on him, Darren was at a loss for words, but he really was there to see a house. So after a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Ethan glanced at the house nearby, then at the wedding ring on Darren's hand, looking even more surprised. "What's your wife's name?" Darren didn't want to drag Lena into the mess with Chloe. After a moment of silence, he didn't say anything. Seeing that he couldn't come up with anything, Chloe's frosty demeanor inexplicably softened a bit. Still, she couldn't stand his act of being addicted to pretending to be married. "Since Darren is here to buy a house, you must have already seen enough. So call your wife and close the deal. Otherwise, I will." She looked him straight in the eye, emphasizing the word wife heavily. This villa was indeed nice, and the secretary had said it was the type Lena liked. Darren was planning to settle on it anyway. Knowing Chloe's personality, if she said she'd do something, she definitely would. After a brief hesitation, he took out his phone and dialed the number marked as his wife's. Even after a minute of ringing, no one picked up. As the seconds ticked by, Chloe's patience was wearing thin. Seeing Darren still holding up the phone, pretending, a flare of unexplainable anger rose in her chest. Just as she was about to speak, a car suddenly drove straight toward the 3 of them. "Watch out." Without thinking, she pulled Ethan to safety. By the time Darren realized the danger and tried to dodge, it was too late. He was hit and rolled to the ground. The accident left Ethan terrified, his eyes losing focus. Chloe was worried about him, so she ignored settling scores with Darren and drove off with Ethan. Darren rolled about 30 feet. His lower leg was badly scraped, the pink flesh showing. It hurt so much his eyes reddened. When he managed to sit up, Chloe's car brushed past him. She was entirely focused on Ethan and didn't glance at badly injured Darren. Dust hit him in the face, making him cough uncontrollably, the redness in his eyes deepening. Once he calmed down a bit, his phone lying nearby buzzed with a voice. "Darren, what's going on?" Hearing Lena's voice, Darren quickly picked up the phone and lied to keep her from worrying. "Oh, nothing. It's just my throat's a little sore. Don't worry. I wanted to tell you that I found us a wedding house. The price might be a bit high. Want to see some photos?" A gentle voice came through. "No need for photos. If you like it, I like it. Price isn't an issue. I trust you, Darren. You can make these decisions." Barely escaping with his life and then being left behind, Lena's gentle reassurances felt like a pebble tossed into Darren's heart, creating ripples. His voice softened as he replied with a smile, despite the pain. "Then let's go with this one." Lena agreed, and not wanting to disturb her work, Darren didn't press further. Just as he was about to hang up, her voice breezed through like a gentle spring wind. "Darren, we're a couple now. No matter what happens, you need to tell me." "All right." Moved by her concern, Darren paused and softly murmured in agreement. Then he limped to the hospital alone, tears trickling down upon recalling Lena's words. They were tears of pain, but also of warmth. The injury wasn't exactly minor, and it ended with Darren needing dozens of stitches. After taking several days to recover at the hospital, Darren returned to work. After wrapping up the meeting planned for 2 days later, his secretary knocked, and entered, visibly anxious. Darren, do you know where Chloe is? We can't reach her yet. X is pressing for the contract. They need it today. What should we do? Fully aware of how crucial the X project was, he'd been involved throughout. Darren didn't want his team's efforts to go to waste. He took the file, offered to try, and left. He hailed a cab and checked Ethan's social media, giving the driver the address of a hot spring resort Ethan had posted about an hour ago. Along the way, Darren tried calling Chloe a few times, but she didn't pick up, making him even more anxious. When he finally arrived, Ethan and Chloe were having afternoon tea. The moment she spotted him, the smile vanished from her face. What are you here for? Darren knew he was interrupting her good mood, but business was business. He calmly explained the situation. Hearing it was work-related, Ethan stood up immediately. Chloe, if you have to attend to work, let's head back. Chloe spent forever convincing Ethan to go on a date, and now it's all messed up. She's super pissed. Didn't I tell you? Even if the sky's falling, as long as Ethan and I are together, don't bother us. She scolded. Then she flipped the table, shot him a cold glare, and ran after Ethan. Hot coffee spilled on Darren's wound, making him suck in a sharp breath. He watched Chloe leave, a bitter smile playing on his lips. Truth is, he never told her this. If he had known how important Ethan was to her, he wouldn't have wasted years on her. He wouldn't have turned down all those offers to stay by her side as an assistant. Lost in thought, he limped to the roadside. The cab that was parked there before had vanished. The resort's shuttle buses had left, too. It was obvious Chloe had done this on purpose as payback. Sighing, Darren accepted his fate and started the long walk down the mountain, dress, shoes, and all. After 10 kilometers, he got home just as the sun set. His leg injuries hadn't healed. He was in pain, stumbling several times in the dark. Caked in mud, his leg blistered and bleeding, it felt like walking on razor blades. He took off his shoes, limping into the living room, planning to clean up, but suddenly a cold laugh hit him. You found it fun to interrupt me and Ethan? Darren looked up to meet Chloe's furious eyes. Straightening up, he lowered his head respectfully. Chloe, I really came to deliver documents. I didn't know Ethan meant so much to you. Sorry. He handed her the signed document he'd carried around all day. Chloe took it with a blank expression, then ripped it to shreds in front of him. She threw the plastic cover at him. There's no room for schemers here. If this happens again, pack your bags and leave. With that, she slammed the door as she left. Staring at the shredded paper on the floor, Darren leaned against the coffee table and squatted down, wiping the blood from his leg. He chuckled. Next time there wouldn't be one. In 10 days, he'd really be packing up and leaving. The next morning, a secretary brought him a document. Darren flipped through it quickly. It was a notice of discipline, docking his half-year salary and bonus. On top of that, the secretary relayed a new company rule. Whenever Chloe and Ethan were together, no one was to disturb them, using Darren as the cautionary tale. Darren just signed the notice without argument, grabbed his coffee mug, and headed to the break room. The new rule was the hot topic at work, with everyone gossiping about Chloe and Ethan. Some folks dug up old stories to spread around. Did you hear the Willow City project was all for Ethan's love of skiing? Chloe just bought it up. That antique tea set Chloe had me photograph? It's with Ethan. I saw it on the news. Darren quietly listened but didn't join in, focusing on his coffee. A few co-workers, knowing he'd been slighted, offered comfort. Darren, you were innocent in all this. Everyone thinks you're catching strays. Maybe apologize to Chloe, see if things can be salvaged. Darren shook his head, oddly cheerful. I'm leaving soon anyway. Wasn't going to get that money either way, so why bother? Hearing this, everyone gathered around, curious. You're really leaving? We thought you were kidding. Will Chloe allow it? Yeah, you've been with her for years. She's not going to try to keep you. Darren smiled, meeting their eyes with sincerity. For real. 9 days and I'm out. See you around. Word spread, and many colleagues stopped by to say goodbye. Luckily, Chloe was busy with Ethan, staying out of the office and hadn't been in touch. Enjoying the calm, Darren wrapped up projects slowly. 2 days before leaving, he got home to unexpectedly receive a call from Ethan. Darren, you available? Can you bring stomach meds to my place? Chloe's got a bad stomachache. Grabbing the meds, Darren headed to the Smiths quickly. Ethan took the pills, pulled out 2, and as if to feed them to Chloe, lifted the water glass. Chloe, unused to this sudden intimacy, glanced instinctively at Darren. Seeing his impassive face, Chloe realized her reaction was odd. She looked away and quickly swallowed the meds. Once she swallowed, Ethan put down the glass, patted a pillow behind her neck, then turned to Darren. I thought Chloe was healthy. How'd she get a stomach problem? Darren glanced at Chloe, who was looking down, and finally explained, plain and simple. Since you left the country, Chloe's been drinking heavily, getting drunk at least 4 or 5 times a month. Her stomach's gotten bad. She won't see a doctor. And it's... Without finishing, Chloe looked up suddenly, as if shocked he'd undermine her. Running your mouth, aren't you? You've delivered it, now leave. Something Darren said seemed to piss her off again, but he wasn't about to dwell on it now, and with a slight nod, turned to leave the villa. As he stepped out of the elevator, he heard hushed voices in the garage. He tiptoed closer to find the driver chatting. Been spending every day with your young master, Chloe has. Sounds like something big's coming up, huh? No way. Ethan's girlfriend just broke up with him not too long ago. I saw him with teary eyes a couple of days ago. Can he really move on this quickly? You don't get it. Heartbreak. You always get over it eventually. With someone as great as our Chloe, who's so into him, it's just a matter of time before he falls for her. Listening to their chat, for some reason, Darren felt a sense of relief and smiled. Yeah, Chloe waited for Ethan for 12 years. Someone as devoted as her will eventually get what she wants, right? But it's got nothing to do with him anymore. He was about to start a new chapter in his life. The day before leaving, Chloe still hadn't come back. Darren followed Lena's assistant to the bridal shop and picked out a wedding dress he really liked. It suited Lena perfectly. Back home, he went through everything related to Chloe and either burned or tossed it all away. Looking at the now empty room he'd lived in for 10 years, he turned off the lights and peacefully drifted to sleep. The day of departure, his alarm went off at 8 o'clock. He rubbed his eyes, got up, freshened up, and went to the office to finish his resignation process. After getting home, he packed the last of his things into boxes and closed the door. The housekeeper mentioned that Chloe had returned. Darren figured he should say goodbye, so he dragged his suitcase to her bedroom and knocked gently. A minute later, the door opened. Chloe peeked out, asking coldly what he wanted. Before he could say the words he had prepared, she caught a glimpse of his luggage and smirked. You're not telling me you're moving out to get married and live in a new house, are you? Darren could hear the sarcasm in her voice, but still answered, yes, I'm getting married tomorrow and moving out. Just wanted to let you know. If you're free, you and Ethan are invited to the wedding. I'll even save a bouquet for Ethan. Watching him act so convincingly, Chloe almost wanted to commend his performance. Just as she was about to speak, her phone chimed with messages from Ethan. She read them while grabbing a coat and heading out. Just before leaving, she turned back to face Darren with her usual haughty tone. Darren, my patience is running thin. This is the last time. Stop acting. Seeing her walk away without looking back, Darren smiled calmly. Chloe, I'm not acting. I really am getting married tomorrow. And for real, I'm leaving. After saying this, he gave one last look around the house, filled with memories. 10 years. He and Chloe had been entangled for 10 whole years. Chloe, one day, you'll realize that the man you think is worthless might just be someone else's treasure. After that thought, he took out his phone and sent Lena a text. Lena, tomorrow's the wedding. Have you made it back to the country? A reply came almost immediately with a ding. Landed at the airport. We'll make it to the wedding on time, Darren. Let's look after each other for the rest of our lives. Feeling a sense of home after reading the reply, he smiled gently, picked up his suitcase, and turned around. Step by step, he walked away from Chloe and the Smiths. He left decisively, not looking back. The next day, Chloe went to work as usual, expecting Darren to make her coffee, only to be told he had completed his resignation. In a fit of rage, she nearly destroyed the entire floor. She couldn't believe that while she had been with Ethan for the past month, Darren had really resigned. After tearing up the resignation letter into pieces out of frustration, she headed back to the old house, determined to confront him.